This in brief is what we'll be considering on March 7th, an initiative to change the city law governing changes to the general plan and development projects. Measure S will be on the ballot for the voters in Los Angeles on March 7th, 2017. This initiative is known as the Neighborhood Integrity Initiative. A yes vote is a yes to support the following: a moratorium on construction that increases development density for up to 2 years, prohibiting project-specific amendments to the city's general plan, requiring a public review of the city's general plan every 5 years, requiring city staff, not developers or project applicants, to perform environmental impact reports, and establishing other changes to the city's general plan law. A no vote would be to reject the initiative, leaving the city's zoning and development laws unchanged. Now, this is just a very brief statement on this. So just so that you get a flavor of this, there's a lot more to this. I hope that during the course of this evening, that the parties here at the two tables will be able to enlighten us further as to what's going on here. We'll start with the opening statements.
Well, thank you, Sean, and thank you to the neighborhood councils and all the other groups that put this together, and thank you to the community for coming out and showing up, because this is really what democracy is all about, is getting involved, and something that I've worked on for a number of years here in Los Angeles, so it's really heartening to see so many people come out tonight when there are so many other things you could be doing. Measure S is a measure that brings certainty to the planning process. That's something that we need here in Los Angeles, because right now there is no certainty. There are laws, there is a general plan, there are community plans, there's zoning. Unfortunately, the city council and the developers, many of the developers are very, very large, wealthy developers, do not follow these rules. And we need, as a community and as a city, certainty in the process. That's good for the community, it's good for the developers, it's good for everybody to know what can be built, where. That doesn't mean that some things can't be changed along the way, but right now it's pretty much the Wild West. They just don't follow the rules, and that's what Measure S is all about. The specifics of Measure S require that that the city update the general plan and the community plans. The city, for the most part, has not updated these plans in decades. In fact, in 2005, the city council voted for them to not have to update these plans. So one of the things that the measure does is it requires that within 90 days of passage that they come up with a plan to update these plans. The next thing that it does is that it stops the conflict of interest when developers can choose who does their environmental impact report. The city right now, unlike this city, unlike many other cities or most other cities in Los Angeles, allows the developer to choose who writes that report, and of course, as we know, it always comes back in the favor of the developer. So that's another important key point. It does stop spot zoning with regard to the general plan. Now understand that the general plan right now prevents spot zoning. However, they just are not following the law. And so the measure does add some additional clarification as to under what conditions you can make changes to the general plan. And then, of course, the thing that's blowing everybody's head up is the 2-year moratorium. And understand the 2-year moratorium only affects a general plan amendment, a zone change, or a height district change. And we've looked at the numbers. It affects about 5% of development in the city. And so when they talk about it's a ban, it's a housing ban, it's you can't build anything, we're going to go into recession, just think about this, okay? If they have to follow the rules, is what they're saying, then the entire city shuts down, okay? If that makes logical sense to you, then you know maybe they've been successful in their argument, but it doesn't make sense to us, and it doesn't make sense to most other people. So thank you very much, and we look forward to a very engaging discussion this evening.
Thank you.
So good evening, my name is Mark Edwards, and I'm with the Coalition to Protect LA Neighborhoods and Jobs. And so basically, first I want to say that when you look at your sample ballot, it will say Measure S, Building Moratorium. That's because Measure S is a building and housing moratorium. It bans critical tools needed for new housing, zone changes, and general plan amendments. We have a housing crisis. We have a homeless crisis. I used to work for the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority back in 2005, 2006. And one of the key points that we made was that the price of doing nothing is not nothing. We didn't do anything back then, or very little when it came to the creation of the housing that we need. And now we find ourselves in a situation by which we have even more homeless, and our housing crisis has gotten worse. How this impacts housing and homelessness is that you have the city of LA put out a request for qualifications because they had 12 what they call housing opportunity sites to locate permanent supportive housing for those who are coming out of homelessness, who are chronically homeless. So they put an RFQ out, and basically what the conclusion is, in order for these sites to be effectively utilized, the vast majority of them need a general plan amendment. And even though they claim that 100% affordable deed-restricted projects are exempt, but it says that if they require general plan amendment, they're not exempt, and so they would be banned. We have a crisis. We need to build housing now, but right now they can't build the housing on these locations because you have a situation by which a Measure S passes. You can't do that. And that's just a small example of the potential impacts on homelessness. Also, we did commission a study, Beacon Economics, and they were able to show that for the first 2 years of the building moratorium, it will have an impact of about $3.8 billion on our local economy. It will cost 24,000 jobs. And these are very conservative estimates, including 14,000 from our construction industry, a critical pathway to the economic security. It will cut $70 million from our city budget each year, enough to hire 1,000 police officers or fire. And we have a situation by which in the very near future, we have so many LAPD officers who are going to be retiring or could retire. This is not a time for us to make this type of impact. The bottom line is there's some elements of it that make sense, but it's important to know that the City Council has been taking action. It's Council File 160422, and that they're addressing a lot of these key issues, but fundamentally, this building moratorium goes too far.